Alright, hello everyone and welcome to NFL Discussion. I'm your host and NFL enthusiast, Doug. In today's episode, I'm going to be discussing Thursday Night Football Week 10 of the NFL season, or 2022 NFL season. So in this edition of Thursday Night Football, you had two division rivals squaring off. Second of their matchup, the Falcons and the Panthers. These two teams went to battle a couple weeks ago. Atlanta got the best of them in that one. That was a good game. This one, a little bit different, not as exciting perhaps as the other game. Granted, there were some rainy conditions, so in terms of an aerial assault that was unlikely, and given the two quarterbacks that were playing in this game, you weren't really going to have much of an aerial assault anyway. And before we get into the action of the game, I do want to take a quick second to plug in BetUS. And if you don't know what BetUS is, they are an online gambling company that offers sports betting, casino games, and horse racing. And as of October 2020, they are an A-rated sportsbook on sportsbookadvisor.com, if that means anything to you. So if you click the link down in the description below, you will receive a 125% sportsbook bonus upon initial deposit. So again, use my link down in the description below. Go play some bets. It doesn't just have to be on football. Yeah, use my link, get a 125% bonus, have fun with it. And with that, we'll go ahead and get right into the action and start with the Atlanta Falcons. So Marcus Mariota completed 19 of 30 passes for 186 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception, and 3 rushes for 43 additional yards. And although this multi-score outing was Mariota's third in the past 5 weeks, he's now been held below 200 yards passing every game but one since week 1. He was lucky to escape with only 1 interception in this game. At one point, he appeared to throw probably about the worst pick 6 I have seen this season, but lucky for him, he had already been touched down, or he was down by contact. His touchdowns were certainly a couple excellent throws, but he misses far too many layups to offer any actual upside as a passer. Perhaps a change to Desmond Ridder could be coming from the 4-6 Falcons, though it probably won't be Week 11 versus the Bears, and I'll get into that point a little bit later on. But there are a couple takeaways from the Falcons' performance in this game that I do have. And that is, number one, that the Falcons' offensive identity appears to be an unknown at this point. I thought it was just run first, run often. They entered the game second only to the Bears in rushing attempt, and running the ball seemed to be their identity, and it had been pretty effective for them this season. Yes, Kyle Pitts and Drake London are weapons in the passing game and should get the ball more. But when your quarterback's missing easy layups, and you're also running the ball 37 times to only 30 pass dropbacks in the last game against the Panthers, the Falcons, so Pitts and London playmakers should get the ball more. When you look back to the last game against the Panthers, they were running the ball 37 times to only 30 pass dropbacks. And interesting enough, in this game, the Falcons started throwing the ball early, in the rain no less. Now, it didn't seem offensively out of whack. 50-50 split, not counting penalties on the first 2 drives. But then Arthur Smith overcompensated on the 3rd drive with 3 straight runs backed up against his own end zone. Strange offensive showing early from the game for the Falcons, put him in a 10-0 hole, and they were not able to dig out of it. So I think that's where the unknown part comes of it too, because they seem to try to do things differently in this game, and then try to go back to what they do best, but by then you're already down and behind, so then you had to scrap it anyway. So just kind of a messy showing on offense for the Falcons in this game. And this leads me to takeaway number 2, which is at some point Falcons might need to have a discussion about whether or not Marcus Mariota is their quarterback going forward. Yes, Mariota's had some good moments this season. You think about the game against the 49ers and most of the second half and overtime in that first game against the Panthers. But overall in the season, he has not played great. He was a liability in Week 9, and he struggled in this game. And the struggles he was having in this game were rookie mistakes, throwing across his body, taking sacks instead of throwing it away, overthrowing wide receivers like Kyle Pitts, who's 6'6". That's bad. Throwing from his back without looking, etc. Carolina dropped at least 2 would-be interceptions, so he got lucky there. The Falcons do have a few spots where they theoretically could have given Desmond Ridder a shot. I think, they could have pulled Mariota after halftime, put Ridder in there and see what he could have done throughout the rest of the game. And it does raise some questions, what is going on in Atlanta? What is the discussion behind the scenes? Could this be a Kellen Mond type of situation? For those who don't know, Kellen Mond was a quarterback drafted by the Vikings when Mike Zimmer was the coach, and basically I think Mike Zimmer's last year, as the Vikings, Zimmer's last season as the Vikings head coach, which was last season, the Vikings got knocked out of playoff contention, so they were playing a meaningless game in Week 18. Zimmer was asked if, Mond would play that game instead of Cousins. Zimmer said no, because he's seen him practice. Absolutely harsh shot taken at the quarterback. Zimmer made it clear he does not trust Mond at all, and so I hope that's not the case with Arthur Smith and Desmond Ridder, that he has no trust in them. There's also the possibility that Arthur Smith doesn't trust his offensive line to hold up for the rookie. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's a thing. Mariota certainly did take some sacks in this game. The Panthers got some pressure on him, but also Mariota could have done more to, negate those sacks, or, could have tried to throw the ball away for some of them. Perhaps he thinks his team is still a contender, given the state of the AFC South. It's possible that they could still be contenders, because realistically speaking, the Falcons, I don't think they're going to claim the only way they get into the postseason is if they win their division. So perhaps that's what he's still thinking, and maybe there's some other factor that I didn't quite see on the internet. But the longer Mariota struggles under center and Ridder doesn't play this season, the more it seems like Smith might be looking at a different QB option next year, which would make drafting Ridder in the first place completely pointless. So moving on to the Panthers, P.J. Walker completed 10 of 16 passes for 108 yards, adding 3 rushes for 14 additional yards. And despite the scoreless, interceptionless line, more than one of Walker's misconnections were dropped interceptions, including one that could have been a pick six, or should have been a pick six. Walker was mostly tasked in this game with just handing the ball off in conditions that descended into driving rain, and the Panthers ended up running the ball 47 times, gaining 232 yards on the ground, and also scoring a couple times. This performance probably enough for Walker to keep his job for another game heading into Week 11 against the Ravens. Deontay Foreman rushing 31 times for 131 yards and a touchdown. So the Panthers were able to beat the Falcons at their own game in this one, chewing up the clock and rushing 47 times for 232 yards and a pair of scores. Even with Chua Hubbard back, Foreman remained the run game engine as his 130 yards rushing missed his previous career best by just 2. It was also his third 100-yard rushing effort in the past 4 weeks. As Week 9 against the Bengals showed, this offense is capable of going off the rails, but Foreman, with his workloads and power running, can keep it on track, provided the other team does not go up big on the scoreboard. The Ravens and their offensive personnel issues will be a Week 11 matchup that Foreman can work with, though Baltimore is far more vulnerable through the air than on the ground. So a couple takeaways from the Panthers' performance in this game. They made their offensive attentions clear early on. The Falcons entered this game ranked 31st against the pass defensively. So what did the Panthers do? Ran the ball on 17 of the first 23 plays. Carolina was averaging 105.3 rushing yards per game coming in, but they had 128 by halftime and finished with 232 on the ground. And yes, it is strange that a team that traded Christian McCaffrey didn't declare that they are a run-first team. But Steve Wilks is on QB3 now with P.J. Walker, and Wilks stuck with him going into this game. Actually, he probably should have made the switch on Monday, and it's clear that Wilks knows what this offense does well. If he wants to win games, that's the formula. He established a run with Deontay Foreman. It worked pretty well in this game, and it's probably going to be the strategy going forward. And I talked about the quarterback in Atlanta. Let's talk about the quarterback in Carolina. Takeaway number 2. Is P.J. Walker the guy? Is he the guy? not just going forward, but potentially into the next off season. I think he certainly got himself a spot on the roster next off season, but to just say, yeah, but I think you're definitely going to want to bring in some competition in the off season. So Wilkes came out this past Monday morning, declared that Walker would be the starting quarterback, and perhaps this was a surprise. After all, he had a bad first half performance against the Bengals last Sunday, then got benched and was outperformed by Baker Mayfield. Now, Mayfield's performance did come in garbage time, but it wouldn't really have been much of a shock had Wilkes gone back to Mayfield. But Wilkes has gone against everything, stubbornly backed by the former coach Matt Rule. Several of Rule's assistants are gone, the offensive identity has changed, and now Wilkes seems to like what he has with Walker, and from his point of view, it's probably an easier path to run in the kind of offense he seems to be interested in running or leaning into. Granted, that would raise the question of what's next for Mayfield and Darnold. I believe Mayfield's contract expires after this season, so I would expect him to walk in free agency. Darnold, I don't know. I don't know what the situation is with him. I believe his 5th-year option got exercised, so I don't know if that means he has one more season under contract, or if he's also, up after this season and he's walking too. If he is up after this season, I would expect Darnold to walk as well. But as for PJ Walker being the starter next year, well, I don't think he's really made a definitive case for that. He could stick around as a backup for whatever quarterback Carolina brings in next, sure. I know they also have Matt Corral on the roster, but I think Matt Corral should be part of a competition at starter, assuming Carolina doesn't draft another young quarterback. So it appears that there's some thought behind keeping Walker as a starter going forward this season, even if it comes with a risk. Wilkes isn't guaranteed to be back as the coach. He will definitely get his interview. He'll definitely probably be in the consideration. I don't know if he makes it as a finalist. I think that ultimately comes down to how the team performs over the rest of the season, and given how they performed in this game and they got a win, he's certainly presented some evidence for his case to be the coach next year. So we'll see what happens with that. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode of NFL Discussion. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that like button down below.